Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the movie Battleground. My name is Robert Parker. I will be your host for this evening. And boy, do we have an amazing match set up for you tonight. These are two fantastic competitors that we have seen pretty much dominate through this league. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one rolls out. So this is going to be a great match. With us today, we will go to Isaac first. Isaac, how you feeling about today?
Feeling pretty good. The tournament has been fun so far, and looking forward to getting past Greg.
Alrighty, strong words, lots of confidence coming from Isaac, and he spoiled it, but his opponent today is Greg the Einstein Weinstein. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited, ready to have some fun. I think I've already beaten the second best player in this tournament with Luca. So that's all there is to it. I mean, really, it's just a cakewalk for me to the championship to get my belt.
Alrighty, and also confidence there from Greg. So, you two obviously have played this game before, you know what's going on, but let's just do a quick reminder for those watching at home. This game will consist first of the main round, where there are 4 debate questions. Players will have the opportunity to introduce their points, just quick in their introduction. Then we'll go to an open forum round lasting 5 minutes, and then there will be closing remarks. So that's how each individual round is going to be judged. I'm judging not only on how you support your own point, but also how you attack the other person's point. So keep that in mind. It is a debate. Other than that, each of you have 1 extension to use throughout the match. So if anytime you want before the round starts, just tell me you'd like to use your 1-minute extension, and there will be 1 minute added to the open forum. Other than that, if we get that far, which I think we just might with these 2 awesome competitors, I will explain the speed round rules when we get that far. But we'll just do the 4 main round questions first. Any questions for you two?
No. Let's go. Let's get it on.
Perfect. We're going to hop right into it then. All right. Question 1. We have a great one coming out the gate for you today. Your first question, pitch your story for Matt Reeves' Batman movie. So we know Matt Reeves has a Batman movie coming up. We're going to hear these 2 pitches. We're going to start with Isaac. Since I introduced you first, Isaac, feel free to go with your opening remarks whenever you're ready.
All right. Pitch Matt Reeves' Batman movie. I know this movie is being produced so swimmingly, so there should be no problem getting my pitch made. There's no trouble at all in this production. My movie is going to be based on Dark Victory, taking elements from The Long Halloween, and 1 character from The Dark Knight Returns. So basically, it's a noir mystery where it's going to... I don't know how familiar you guys are with The Long Halloween or The Dark Victory, but basically it's going to open up with a breakout of Arkham Asylum by the Maroni crime family is orchestrating it to kill Two-Face based on the what happened in The Long Halloween. Now, the reason I'm going to borrow elements is that there's going to be flashbacks in this story to explain some of the setups. So it opens up with this breakout of Arkham, and they did that to kill Two-Face to make peace with the Falcones. Now, the Alberto Falcone guy, he's already in Arkham, and he was the holiday killer from The Long Halloween. Spoilers if you haven't read it. He, because of his actions during the riot and the breakout, he's granted house arrest, like limited release type of thing. And after this riot goes on, the mystery really kicks off because there's a new serial killer in town, the Hangman Killer, who starts racking up bodies, and he leaves behind these hangman drawings on the scene. So Batman's hunting down this serial killer. There's a mob war going on between the Maronis and the Falcons on one side, and then Two-Face and his henchmen on the other side. And this mob war is boiling up over the summer. And during it, a shootout happens in a circus, and a young child's parents get killed and is adopted by Bruce. Now you're thinking that's going to be Robin. I'm going to change that to bring in Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns. I'm gonna sub her out for Dick Grayson. She's going to be portrayed by Sophia Lillis, who was in It from last year. So I'm going to get into a little bit in my closing about where the story is going to go from here. But it's a mystery movie where he's hunting down this this serial killer, and at the same time, there's a mob war going on in the background. So that's my pitch.
Alrighty, strong pitch there. Isaac definitely knows what he's talking about. Greg, over to you for your opening statement.
Well, it seems like me and Isaac happen to follow up on the same stuff there. My pitch is also revolving around taking parts of Long Halloween, along with Under the Red Hood, and then I'm also incorporating a character from year one, D.A. Janice Porter, as my Two-Face is going to be as opposed to will also be somewhat doing flashbacks, but more of a minimal setup for more of a sequel. I'm keeping Ben Affleck as Batman. I do not think there should be a different Batman for obvious reasons. For one, I think we should continue with the whole Ben Affleck being more of an older Batman, more of a broken down Batman, as opposed to bringing in someone newer, like they've mentioned. I think we've done that before with Christian Bale. We need to stop doing someone in their 30s and move to someone older, 40s, 50s. Get an older Batman in there. But the reason why I'm bringing Under the Red Hood is create a more personal villain to Batman. With if no one's seen Under the Red Hood, it revolves around Jason Todd, who we've already seen in Suicide Squad, be murdered, coming back as the Red Hood, who uses the Calendar Man from the Long Halloween as his puppet, and Batman tries to foil the Calendar Man while finding out that there's this other guy behind him, being Jason Todd, the Red Hood. So it creates this great former protege that Jason Todd was, and Batman thinking he's dead, dealing with all of this grief, and then at the end you realize it's actually still Jason Todd. I'm going to have Lizzie Kaplan as D.A. Janice Porter, who had a Matt Reeves connection from Cloverfield. I'm going to use Toby Kebbell as the Calendar Man, Matt Reeves connection from Planet of the Apes, and I'm bringing in Michael B. Jordan as Jason Todd. One, because as anyone who saw Black Panther knows, he's just an amazing villain, and he can really create that really mythos and pathos of being let down by someone who you thought would be there for you. And so it's going to have this great personal connection while also adding the noir crime story that Isaac mentioned. But unlike his movie, having this great personal connection with Jason Todd and Batman.
Alrighty, both strong pitches, a little bit similar, but different enough in some very specific ways. So you two are going to have 5 minutes to duke it out in an open forum round. I will give you a 15-second warning when we are 15 seconds away from the end, and then I'll stop you at 5 minutes. So whenever you're ready, go for it.
All right, if you had pitched Under the Red Hood or The Long Halloween, I might have been on board for it. By taking Jason Todd from Under the Red Hood and putting him as the holiday killer instead of Alberto Falcone, like
Alberto Falcone is still the killer. He's a minor villain.
Who's the man behind? You said he was the man behind the Calendar Man, right?
No, he's like the pulling the puppet strings.
So instead of Calendar Man, it's going to be Jason Todd.
Calendar Man is still a minor villain. But after Batman catches the Calendar Man, it turns out Jason Todd is behind pulling the strings of the Calendar Man. As opposed to your creating the main villain of the Calendar Man, my Calendar Man is a minor villain, somewhat similar to like I gotta think of a good example at the moment.
Like Scarecrow and Batman.
Yeah, Scarecrow being or Bane being used by Talia Al Ghul in Dark Knight Rises.
I'm saying there was two people there in that story. The Calendar Man and the Holiday Killer were two separate people, but that's fine. My point is,
I'm using the Calendar Man. I'm not using the Holiday Killer.
Okay, gotcha. But that's what I'm saying is that by bringing in the Red Hood as the main villain instead of the Holiday Killer, I think you ruined both stories. Like, if you had pitched Under the Red Hood, that would have been fantastic. Or if you would have pitched Long Halloween, that would have been fantastic. By mixing them up together like that, I think you kind of mix it up a little bit too much.
I'm not getting a one-to-one copy like you are with your story, where you're just taking. Copy. It's basically a one-to-one copy where you're using the same villains. I don't want to use the same villains because, one, the Calendar Man and the Holiday Killer are basically the same villain as there is, so you don't need both of them. So I'm cutting out the resemblance and just using one of them like there should be. And two, the whole point of Jason Todd as the Red Hood is that it creates this personal connection to the villain and the hero, which you do not have in your story, where you're just dealing with this.
Exactly, because I'm sick of villains having personal.
All your villains are nobodies.
Exactly. Here's the thing: I'm sick of villains. I'm sick of villains having personal connections to the heroes. Like the villains, they're fine. I'm fine with villains being great and whatever. We've never seen a Batman villain just be a normal villain, like be a serial killer. The personal connection in my story is going to be the Carrie Kelly Robin and Batman learning to accept another Robin under his wing. That's going to be my personal connection, is bringing another Robin in.
Every bad villain nowadays in superhero movies is just a nobody villain who has no connection to the hero. If you think of all of the great villains in the superhero arc, they have a personal connection to the hero.
Joker didn't have a personal connection.
Who?
The greatest villain of all time, the Joker, did not have a personal connection with
the Joker. Has a personal connection.
No, he doesn't. Where's his personal connection? His whole thing is anarchy and just nutso.
Black Panther. You got Killmonger having a personal connection to Black Panther. You have Loki, who was the greatest Marvel villain before Killmonger. He had a personal connection to the hero.
Barely a villain.
He was definitely a villain in the Avengers and in Thor. But you think of all these other bad villains in other movies who don't have personal connections, like Thor 2, like Iron Man 2, like Dark Knight Rises, which was a worse movie. It creates this villains that don't have a connection, and we don't care about the villains.
Wait, the Dark Knight Rises, he did have a personal connection. Talia al Ghul had a personal connection with Batman, and she was the worst villain in Batman. That
was created throughout the movie. It wasn't a personal connection beforehand.
Yes, it was. She was the daughter of Ross.
But that had nothing, we didn't know that for the last 10 minutes. That was shoehorned in.
And it ruined the villain. It ruined it.
I agree. That's what I said.
Connection ruined it. Exactly. I want a Batman movie. I don't want another villain movie. I want a movie that focuses on Batman as a character in this mystery. I want a true detective movie. I don't want another.
Which is what. But your villains don't add up to anything. Your villain, it just goes to a point and it ends.
My movie's about Batman, not the villains.
You can't have a Batman movie without a good villain. Your villains, you can't just say, "Oh, we're gonna have a great Batman movie." You need a villain to antithesize the hero. You're just having the hero and saying, "Oh, people will be around him." You can't just have a movie based solely around Batman. Batman doesn't work without a good villain.
Himself. The villain is his own psychology.
That is not. You can't. The villain is himself. Batman's always the villain to himself. That's not a new thing. You're just creating new nuances, saying it's new, but really they're the same old thing. But really, your villains are less.
Time there. All right. So Isaac, we'll go to you for closing remarks whenever you're ready.
Okay. Matt Reeves has said that Dark Victory is one of his favorite Batman stories. This is a story that he has a connection to. I didn't get a chance in my opening to pitch my ending, but I wanted to have a teaser for Red Hood as the sequel. When you said Red Hood, that was really funny. I actually have it written down. You could check. But I actually have that as the setup, as the follow-up. Because the rumor is that Matt Reeves is trying to do a trilogy, not just a standalone movie. So I wanted to start off with something small where the crime and the villain was the backdrop, or the villain wasn't as important as the characters we're getting to know. The character of Carrie Kelly and Batman and him learning to accept someone else back into his life, that is the story. There is a villain in The Hangman Killer, but it's more like a Seven type of villain. It's more of a psychological thriller mystery where the villain isn't out there making monologues and beating up the hero. He's a psychological one. He's one that is murdering people and playing with Batman's emotions. That is, I want a noir mystery. Noir mysteries aren't one where there's a monologuing villain out there where he's wearing a big costume. Like, that's not what that story is. Said pitch Matt Reeves' Batman movie. Matt Reeves has said this is one of his favorite stories. I'm pitching his movie. I want a crime mystery where Batman is the focus, not another villain.
Already a strong finish there from Isaac and Greg for your closing remarks.
What Isaac doesn't understand is that without a good villain, Batman is just a guy in a dark suit beating people up for the hell of it. The minor characters are the minor villains, and the minor crime fairies families are B stories and C stories. Simply that because they're not worthy of a full A story plot. Isaac did not mention who his Batman would be because I feel like he didn't want to. Stand on one side or the other, which I think was a. You didn't say that. He didn't bring up who his Batman would be. His villains, like I said, are one notes. They're not anything that can get anyone excited about. He wants to create this crime serial killer noir movie a la Seven when people are already complaining about the fact that Batman's going off and killing people and there's too much murder. So he's just creating more and more of that, which isn't really going off to a good area. It's not something that I think fans will appreciate. The best villains we've seen in movies have been villains with personal connections to the hero, a la Killmonger in Black Panther, a la Loki in Thor. We need these kind of villains to make the hero have some kind of stakes, have some kind of pathos, and that we need from Batman, especially Batman. He's talking about Batman being his own worst villain. Batman's always his own worst villain. That's the whole point of Batman, is that he's always inside his own head. He's always dealing with his own shit from the past. It's something we've seen before. It's something we've dealt with before, and we're tired of Batman just dealing with whole Batman shit. It needs to move on, have an older Batman dealing with his whole mistakes, but having to deal with an actual villain. And setting up my teaser for the sequel would have been Richard Jenkins as Dr. Hugo Strange, setting that up as a way to really create this Machiavellian plot that moves forward through to the trilogies, like Matt Reeves has mentioned. And the reason why we're starting off with the Under the Red Hood and Long Halloween is to have this personal connection villain that Red Hood could be, and we have a redemption story for him in the sequel.
All right, y'all aren't making my job easy right off the bat. Give me a second. So you both talked a little bit similarly about what your movies, especially in the opening pitch. It seemed a little bit similar. Both of you actually spent quite a bit of the open forum period just kind of debating like other comic book movies, if there were actual personal connections or not, which I think is neither here nor there, like as far as other movies for this particular argument. I liked what Isaac was saying about how Greg's pitch would ruin both stories. I liked what Greg was saying about how, of course, Batman's always his own worst villain. I didn't think that Isaac not bringing up who's playing Batman hurt him at all. I don't think he was trying to hide anything with that. Well, I don't think it's the movie that I personally would want to see. I think Greg had a better argument there for why a very personal connection would be more meaningful to this story moving on. So I'm going to give that first point to Greg. Although I would personally want to see Isaac's more.
That's all that matters to me.
Yeah. Oh, I would absolutely prefer a Dark Victory, Arkham Asylum included, Long Halloween. I would much prefer Isaac's pick. Don't do Red Hood combined with something else. Do that its own personal thing. All right. So Greg's going to go up 1-0, but we have 3 questions left still. So, all right. Round 2. The second question. Sorry, I got to find it. All right. Question 2. Best movie directed by Jason Reitman. Greg, we are going to you first this time. So whenever you are ready, go ahead with your opening argument.
This was a really tough choice. There were a lot of he did a few really good movies, but I believe the best one done by Jason Reitman, which was actually his first one that really put him on the map and was really his own full creation, was the great 2005 movie Thank You for Smoking. It has a dynamite lead performance by Aaron Eckhart, who was really never better, and unfortunately has not found a role that has best suited him since. I think it was kind of a letdown that he really hasn't done anything since that. I think it was just proven how great of a director he was since then. But on top of that, you have an all-star cast with Maria Bello, David Kushner, Robert Duvall, Sam Elliott, J.K. Simmons, of course, in all of Jason Reitman movies, Cameron Bright, Katie Holmes playing a real. It's Katie Holmes playing against type, as you think the Justice kind of reporter who's kind of playing off the Katie Holmes character of this really young, nuanced, young. Inexperienced girl, and really she turns out to flip it on its head by taking by being the one to put the take down Aaron Eckhart's character before he gets his redemption later on. But if you don't know the movie, Aaron Eckhart plays this lobbyist for the tobacco company, and it's all about upending the concept and the whole mystique of the cigarettes, and really all about how we as humans take in different stuff, how we take in advertisements, how we take in speech, how we take in rhetoric. It's not about arguing whether this is good or this is bad. It's about arguing, if I can get you to say one thing that goes against your argument, I've already won. And he does this beautifully in this great speech with Cameron Bright and with his son, Cameron Bright, and his class, where he explains to them what you really need to, what can be done, and whether you, doesn't matter if I've proven my point or proven your point. The point is I've got you to admit that you're wrong, so therefore I'm right and I've won this argument, which, as you'll see, happens throughout the entire of this fight when I beat Isaac in every single match.
Strong words there from Greg at the end. Isaac, whenever you're ready for your opening.
All right. My pitch, or my pick is the magnum opus, in my opinion, of Jason Reitman, the Up in the Air. Up in the Air was or is a movie about this a guy with a unique job. His name is Ryan Bingham, and he works for a consultancy agency that goes around the country firing people. And his whole character is this single guy who loves to be traveling and on the air and by himself in the air, and traveling about the country. He refuses to make personal connections. He has his whole speech that he makes several times throughout the movie about what's in your backpack and how life is just easier without those connections. And throughout the movie, he is challenged. Those beliefs are challenged, and he goes through a journey. And the movie ends up where you might not expect it, with him basically just staying where he's at. It's a fascinating character study of a man who doesn't grow. And Jason Reitman has said about how he likes characters who don't change. And I think that that Bingham is his best character. And the themes that this film explores of corporate greed and alienation and infidelity, all those different themes and the dilemmas, the family versus career, the romance versus love, like flings versus commitment, freedom. All those themes that are explored in this movie are deep, and it's a fascinating movie to watch, and it is Jason Reitman's best.
Alrighty, good opening from both players here. We'll put 5 minutes on the clock for the open forum round. Whenever one of you starts talking, I'll start the time.
All right. Well, I think we can. I think Isaac and I can both agree on is these are definitely two of Jason Reitman's best movies, and they are all they are both completely his movies, both directed and written by Jason Reitman, as opposed to some people's maybe better movie was Juno, but I think Juno relies more on the writing than the actual directing in that movie. So I think these two are definitely the pinnacle of Jason Reitman's career. The thing I will say that I believe has thank you for smoking puts over the top is a couple of different things. Is that one, for one, I think it has a better cast overall, and two, I think Up in the Air is too much of a product of its time. It is pretty much centered around the recession of that we're going through and the whole job market's falling down, that I do not think it will stand up later on. I still think it's a good movie, but I don't think it will stand the test of time as other movies, especially Thank You for Smoking, which, as people know, smoking is not just a it's not just a flash in the pan thing. It's been going on for 50 plus years. We have been dealing with the health risks for all those years, with cancer being one of the number one killers in America, and with the fact that people lying to you and people being able to persuade you. And what we're dealing with in politics is this fact that Thank You for Smoking inhibits, and which is why I think it becomes a better movie overall. I think it has better longevity than Up in the Air, which I think is a more, like I said, centralized movie to the time.
Okay, well, the time that it explores is unique in American history. How? No, it's not. People will always struggle. The themes that it explores of freedom versus commitment and love versus just having a romance, those themes are what will stand the test of time. Sure, any movie set in any time period won't stand the test of time. Education will change smoking. This generation has changed the outlook on smoking dramatically. There's no smoking zones. There's more education about it. That will change eventually.
It's still one of the biggest. It's still one of the biggest vices. It's still one of the biggest vices around.
Of course, it is.
Just because we know more about it doesn't mean we don't still do it. It's still one of the most popular things to do from an American people, and people are still doing it because they want to look cool. They want to deal with stress. And if you want to talk about your movie not being a part of the time, my movie could probably before, during, and after your movie, people losing their jobs and they're going for a smoke break, and people dealing with the health hazards of that.
Okay, but I'm not saying that smoking won't be an issue in 30 years. But I'm saying is that it won't be as big of an issue. If you're talking about the themes of your movie standing the test of time, that's fine. But you're talking about smoking itself. That's such a weird. I don't know. One thing you said was that both of these movies are his own creation.
The themes of politics, the themes of the rhetoric of having to convince and having to argue and having to debate and having these big pockets spoon feeding the American public what they think. Like you have the cigarette tobacco company, you have the alcohol company, you have the gun company, right. You have the housing company, you have all these politicians and all of these consumer groups spoon feeding American what they think is what they need and what they don't think is what's wrong, and it's creating these problems that we have, and it's going to keep having. Well, up in the air. Well, yeah, all people always lose their jobs. At the time this movie came out,
that is not. That's not. I'm not talking about people losing their jobs.
I'm talking about the movie will not stand the test of time because it's centralized on one particular era.
And I'm saying the era doesn't matter. The themes are what matters. But
I'm saying it does.
Let's move past just the themes of our movies. As a movie, my movie is better. Thank You for Smoking is great. I'm not taking away from it. It has problems. There's a lack of continuity. It's basically a collection of comedy sketches. There's no real character evolution. It's overacted. It's swinging too hard for obvious jokes that get repetitive. It's not a complete movie. It's not a journey. It's just sketches that are trying to say something, and it fails even on that level. It fails as satire.
The fact that you say it fails as satire is the fact that you just didn't get it, obviously. This is one of the best. It is one of the best satirical movies of all time, putting this guy who is the upper echelon of what a guy thinks should be, and turning it on its head with his whole rhetoric. And the fact that you don't think there's any kind of character evolution is just insane. But the fact that he's taken down by Katie Holmes' character, and that forces him to reevaluate his life. He still goes on to be a lobbyist, but he realizes that what he was doing with the health hazards of the America has caused this issue that he's been dealing with.
All right, I'll call time there. A couple seconds early. All right, so you guys both got in a lot of great points there. I was doing a lot of writing. Greg, you started this round, so we'll go to you for closing.
Yeah, can you still hear us, by the way?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead and for your closing.
Okay. Yeah, so like I said, these are, I believe, as Isaac and I both mentioned, I believe these are two of the best Jason Reitman movies in his unique au revoir. The thing he said about Thank You for Smoking is just lunacy. Aaron Eckhart is a fully realized character who has to come to grips with the fact that he sold out his friends, he sold out his family, and he sold out the company that he was working for 10 plus years, and has a change of heart, not in terms of what he's good at, but in terms of what he's pushing for. He doesn't. He walks away from the tobacco industry, which gets taken down in the form of J.K. Simmons' character. Obviously, you're not going to take down big money ever, but the fact that characters get taken down because of what he does and what he is alluded to in the congressional hearings that he has to go through, and it's represented beautifully in the Sam Elliott's character, who was basically a Marlboro Man type guy who, because of obviously his job, developed lung cancer later in life. And Aaron Eckhart was sent as doing what he does, trying to convince him to not use his disease, not use it as a speaking platform to take down the tobacco company. And when he does that, it is not a way in which he wants to do because of because of what his son gives him. His son changes him, as you can tell from going through his life. And that forces him to realize that this is not the way he wants to do it. Again, he still has the job at the end with a different company, with his own kind of way, his own morals that he decides to deal with. It is something different. It is a change. As opposed to Up in the Air, which again, I think is too much of a sign of the times. I think George Clooney is basically just playing George Clooney, this 40s, 50s guy who's basically just roving around, doing whatever the hell he wants, not having really any relationships. Anna Kendrick, I think, was a okay character, but I don't think it was as fully realized as it should have been. The whole deal with her ex-boyfriend was a little bit too flighty and too much than it should have been. I do think Vera Farmiga was way too much of a sex pot for what it could have been. I think it should have been more evolved. But again, I think Up in the Air will be too much of a product of its time, not evolved as it should. I think for Smoking is a great political satire that could have been done 50 years ago and can be done 50 years from now.
All right, Isaac, for your closing.
Okay. Thank you for Smoking. The reason it doesn't work as satire is something that you actually said in your opening argument that doesn't hold up. You said that it's Jason Reitman's own creation. Both of our movies were. Neither one of our movies were his own creation. They're both based on novels. Mine is an improvement on the original novel, whereas yours is a bad adaptation of a novel, and that's a generally accepted fact. Is that the reason the satire doesn't work is because the novel, while it tells the same story, it does it in a much different way. It tells it from the true standing of satire, where it criticizes both sides. The reason the movie fails as satire is that it takes a side. Satire is not supposed to do that. The book criticizes both sides, and the movie refuses to take one side, or it refuses to criticize both sides. It takes a side, and by doing that, it fails as satire. What I said before still stands. There's overacting. There is no real character evolution. Even you said that he still becomes a lobbyist. Yes, exactly. He's the same person at the beginning. And where my character doesn't evolve either, the point is the journey, the personal journey. I don't care about anybody in Thank You for Smoking. I care about it as a comedy, but there's no personal connection to anybody. George Clooney's character and the journey he takes over the course of this movie, and where he challenges his own beliefs, and at the end of the movie makes the call of like, wait, maybe I was right. Maybe I was right. I love that as a single man who at this point is happy where he's at. I've never seen a character like that on screen, where every movie has a relationship where it feels like the movie's defined by that relationship. This movie is defined by the lack of relationships. We don't talk about just the movies compared side by side. Like I said, my movie is an actual complete movie with complete characters. Your movie is a collection of sketch comedies, and you can see that in the reaction at the time. My movie was nominated for 6 Oscars, including 2 for Best Supporting Actresses. The one you criticized, Anna Kendrick, I take great umbrage to that. And Vera Farmiga, she was an incredible character that twist where she was revealed to have a family and be living a double life was just incredible. And her portrayal there is absolutely wonderful. It was nominated for 6 Golden Globes, named the Best Picture of 2009 by the National Board of Review. Your movie, I think, was nominated for 2 Golden Globes. I think that's it.
And an Oscar.
Pardon?
And an Oscar.
Was it nominated for an Oscar? I don't remember. Still, 6 Oscars on my side. Just as a movie, it stands up better. As far as standing the test of time, once again, I'm not saying that this movie will stand the test of time because of the story it tells and the era it's told in. No, the themes that this movie explores will stand the test of time. If your movie had done what satire does and stayed down the middle and actually criticized both sides of the issue, your movie would have stand the test of time. But already, people have forgotten Thank You for Smoking. My movie is the best Jason Reitman movie.
Alrighty, a solid closing by both of you there. Just a quick fact check. Up in There was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Thank You for Smoking was not nominated for any. It was nominated for Golden Globes and some other awards, but not for any Oscars.
I didn't think so.
This one was a little bit interesting. I think in the open forum, you talked a lot about standing the test of time for both of these movies. I think Greg focused a little bit more on the content standing the test of time, especially in his closing, talking about how this movie could be made about the same content 50 years ago or 50 years from now, whereas Isaac focused a little bit more on the themes and how that's unique and how the themes can stand the test of time and the era it's made in and the era it focuses on doesn't matter as much. I think overall, the two knocks against Up in the Air that I heard was it's of its time and it's Clooney playing Clooney. And I heard probably 7 or 8 knocks against Thank You for Smoking. So I think I'm going to give this point to Isaac. I think he had a better argument about why not only it's going to stand the test of time, but why it's a better movie overall. So Isaac's going to tie it up 1-1. Alrighty. We are going to go into question 3. The third question of the main round. What is the worst movie featuring William Fichtner? Did I pronounce that right? I might have messed that up. Yeah. Close enough for me. Close enough for me. Worst movie starring William Fichtner. Isaac, we are coming to you first for your opening.
All right, I'm going to gamble here and extend this round.
Okay, so we're going to use Isaac's plus 1 minute extension in the open forum. So our open forum will be 6 minutes instead of 5.
Okay. All right. The worst movie featuring William Fichtner or Fichtner, whatever, featuring Old Bill, is Independence Day Resurgence. And I can't really talk much about this movie. I can, but I don't want to. I don't know how to explain the plot to this movie. If you watched Independence Day, then you know what that story is. And this is the sequel to that movie, and the aliens come back. Will Smith doesn't. And that's basically what Independence Day Resurgence is. It's overlong, it's boring, it's terribly written, terribly acted, terribly directed. If it has something to do with this movie, it's pretty terrible. I really, really hate you guys for asking this question, because after I watched Independence Day Resurgence in the theater, I was like, I'm never watching that movie again. And because of this question, I had to sit through it again today. And thank you for that. So, Independence Day Resurgence.
As far as the question is concerned, we can all blame Aaron on 3. 1, 2, 3. It's your fault, Aaron. Thank you. All right, Greg, when you're ready.
So I'm glad that Isaac already gave me the win with his opening speech of the plot of Independence Day Resurgence is that the aliens come back. Yes, that is the plot of Independence Day Resurgence. It's very concise. That's all you really need from an Independence Day movie is that. My movie is a shoddy rehash of so many other, not really better movies, but less worse movies than Ultraviolet, the Mila Jovovich starring by Kurt Varmer from 2006, which if you've seen the poster, if you've seen any of the trailers, it's basically an excuse for Mila Jovovich to show her stomach a lot and to do a lot of action scenes. But the problem with this movie is that there is no coherent plot. For one, the reason why there's no coherent plot is that the movie was taken away from Kurt Wimmer when he gave them his first rough cut. It was a 120-minute R-rated movie that they then condensed to 86 minutes and PG-13. They took away over half an hour of the movie and then decided to release it PG-13, which is why there's one scene where Mila Jovovich takes her knife and takes off 4 people's heads, and you see literally no blood. She decapitates them, and no blood comes out. This is you might know Kurt Wimmer from the somewhat less worse movie Equilibrium, starring Christian Bale. If you saw Equilibrium, you will see a lot of stuff that he copied in Ultraviolet. You'll also see a lot of stuff copied from Resident Evil franchise, including the very first line when Resident Evil, she goes, "I'm Alice." She literally redoes that in Ultraviolet, where her very first line is, "I am Violet." It's a horrible movie that steals from less worse movies. The action is the same throughout, where it's just her fighting 12 other people. I'll try to explain the plot to you in the main part of our battle, but it is a movie that has no incoherent plot, horrible action. It was taken away from the director because his was bad and then it got worse. And at least Independence Day Resurgence has Jeff Goldblum.
All right, showing the Jeff Goldblum love. With that, we are going to go into the open forum. It's going to be 6 minutes because Isaac used his extension, so 6-minute open forum whenever you guys are ready.
Ultraviolet, huh? Sure, it's a bad movie. The best thing about Ultraviolet, the best thing. This is wonderful. It's 80-some minutes. Like, even the worst movie in the world, if it's 80-some minutes, I'd rather watch that than Independence Day Resurgence. Independence Day Resurgence feels like 300 minutes of just death. It's so bad. No, 80.
Yeah, the thing about 88 minutes is that when you're talking about time, 88 minutes could then feel like 2 hours. Your Independence Day Resurgence, you could literally take out just the first 30 minutes, and then you have some pretty great alien action battles.
No, they are not good action battles.
They're better than Ultraviolet, and they're great action battles. It's basically he copied what he did in Independence Day in the alien battles, which was fine. Except this time you actually have comparable human craft versus the alien craft. So it's not just humans getting the shit beat out of them. They're actually able to have some kind of defense.
They're both alien ships. You can't tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys in the space battles. You can't. The only time is when it's on the people.
And you can tell them by when they're shooting each other. It's still at least, and Roland Emmerich is at least a competent director, as opposed to Kurt Wimmer. And the other thing about the movie is that this literally killed Kurt Wimmer's career. This is back in 2006. He has not directed another movie. Roland Emmerich will do more movies.
That's a bad thing. Exactly. It should have killed Roland Emmerich's career. It killing your guys' career, that's a good thing. That's a plus on your movie. It's not for my movie. It should have killed my movie. They killed the director. Roland Emmerich has done good movies like Independence Day, and hopefully he'll find something good later on. But the fact is, the Independence Day Resurgence, whether it's just Jeff Goldblum's character, whether it's just Bill Pullman's character who's dealing with PTSD, whether it's just the action battles in space, or the fact that the alien queen, or the black African warlord. That was he is a great character. Obviously the movie probably should have been based just around him, he is still a great character, as opposed to nobody in Ultraviolet. Milla Jovovich has disowned the movie because it's that bad. She's literally just there to look hot. It's like, hey, great job, you just had a baby and look how much weight you lost. And the bad guy is the guy from Con Air. Nick Chinland is the bad guy, who is nobody, just the guy from Con Air who didn't put the bunny back in the box. You have William Fichtner, who shows up as this really, just in 2 scenes, a scientist guy who's only there to have this Deus Ex Machina point in the movie where he brings back Milla Jovovich to life. And again, I have another Cameron Bright reference as he plays this clone. What? And the point that they're supposed to be vampires, which doesn't really make any sense because they always fight in the daylight. They don't do any blood sucking, but technically that's what they're supposed to be. I'm assuming it probably would have been better explained in the extra 30 minutes that got cut out, but it is not a good movie. It is horrible action. The action pretty much gets repetitive as it's Milla Jovovich fighting against 10 to 15 plus bad guys every single time and then disposing of them incredibly quickly. I would watch Milla Jovovich do anything for 88 minutes versus the best parts of my movie. The best parts are there just to remind you, hey, Independence Day, that was a good movie.
Yours. It's not actual based in fact. You don't have any actual points to bring about why. You're just saying, oh, Mila Jovovich is hot, so therefore I'd rather watch her, when it's really just a personal bias against Independence Day for you. There are plenty of good moments in Independence Day Resurgence. While not a good movie, there are plenty of good points in the movie that could have been better if they had extrapolated that and if they had cut out some of the time, like you mentioned. But there are still good parts in Independence Day Resurgence, as opposed to there are no good parts in Ultraviolet, because it's literally just repeating less worse movies and not doing it any better. It's not good. Kurt Wimmer rightfully lost any kind of credence he had, and Mila Jovovich rightfully disowns the movie. So you're saying if you want to watch it just for her, she would hate you because she hates the movie. This is how bad it is. These two people, mostly responsible for the movie, hate it. That's how bad it is. And one like Rotten Tomatoes, 9% for me, 30% for you.
Yes, that's okay. Here or there. Will Smith, Bright.
There.
Will Smith didn't even show up for my movie. We shouldn't have either.
Jeff Goldblum did. Bill Pullman did. Brent
Exactly.
Spiner did.
And it spits on their good character memory. It spits. That's why my movie's worse than your movie, okay? Even if my movie has good parts in it, I don't think it does. Here's why. Here's why. What was great about Independence Day, and it was a great movie in the 90s. It's a great movie. Everything that this movie does spits on the memory of that movie.
How does it spit on Jeff Goldblum's character?
It wastes him in a terrible movie.
He's doing the exact same thing he did in the first movie. You can't say he spits on his character. Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum. He's doing exactly what Jeff Goldblum does, which is the snarky, too cool for guy scientist who got but Jeff Goldblum is still great as Jeff Goldblum.
15.
And what?
15 seconds.
And Bill Pullman has a great comeback.
No, he doesn't.
It's something it's different. He has to deal with his PTSD from with the alien. And I think it's a great change for his character.
It doesn't give him PTSD. It gives him crazy pills.
Time there. Alrighty. We started with Isaac, so we're gonna go to you for closing arguments when you are ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Once again, Independence Day Resurgence is longer. It's more boring. The action scenes are worse. The acting's awful. It's disrespectful to a classic movie. It almost ruined Independence Day for me. Your movie doesn't ruin anything. Ultraviolet, it ruins nothing. It's forgettable. It's 88 minutes of wasted time, but it doesn't ruin anything. It's not personal. Independence Day Resurgence is personal. It ruins what could have been a franchise. I really wanted Independence Day 2 to be good. It could have built off of good things. It didn't. And Will Smith stayed away. We should have too. I can't even. I really can't even put into words. Like, I don't care. I would rather watch The Room on repeat for 8 days than watch Resurgence again. It's boring. It's boring. At least your movie is watchable. It's watchable. 88 minutes, it's bad, but you can get through it and have fun with it. You can make fun of it. You can't make fun of Resurgence because what it's doing is spitting on something that means something to you. Your movie doesn't do that.
All right, good last points there from Isaac. Greg, when you're ready for your closing, go ahead. Anybody
who says Ultraviolet is watchable clearly has never seen watchable. Time has nothing to do with it. It could be 40 minutes. It would still be a shitty movie. Independence Day Resurgence. I hate people who say that a sequel or a prequel or whatever ruins the original. Dumb and Dumber 2 didn't ruin Dumb and Dumber for me. Dumb and Dumber 2 is just a bad movie. Independence Day Resurgence, not obviously nowhere near as good as Independence Day. Independence Day is not a classic. It is a good movie. It has some great moments, but it is not a classic movie. Independence Day Resurgence has does not ruin Independence Day. You can just not watch Independence Day Resurgence and watch Independence Day, and you'll have no problem with it because you don't even have to know it exists. Independence Day Resurgence, while not a good movie, still has really good moments in it, such as Jeff Goldblum playing Jeff Goldblum, and when he plays Jeff Goldblum, he's really good. Just look at Thor Ragnarok. He was basically playing Jeff Goldblum, and he kicked ass. And he does that in an Independence Day Resurgence. Philip Pullman has a good evolution to his character with the whole PTSD thing. The space battle, the one thing Roland Emmerich knows how to do is he knows how to create action epic scenes. And the thing with the Queen at the end, I don't know why the school bus children is there, but at least it's at least the Queen's kind of cool, and the way they're having to defeat it is really good. But someone who says for only 88 minutes, Ultraviolet is watchable has never seen Ultraviolet. Ultraviolet is not watchable. It was supposed to be based off a graphic novel series, and it failed. The best part of the movie is actually the beginning opening credits, because he literally just takes panels from the comic book and puts the credits over it, and you realize, oh, I should have just read the graphic novel instead of watching this movie, because it's not good. It destroyed Kurt Wimmer's career. He never directed another movie. Mila Jovovich completely disowns it. So your movie, at least your movie, didn't kill anyone's careers. My movie killed careers. It is also 9% on Rotten Tomatoes versus 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's just worse. And the fact that the plot, your plot, can easily be condensed. The aliens came back 20 years later. It's in the tagline, and that's a really succinct tagline. Yeah, there's about 30 to 40 minutes of extra stuff that could have been dropped, but still, the tagline pretty much gives you the plot. The plot of Ultraviolet is fucking insane and has no actual semblance of normality, and it's just boring. It's stupid. There are so many plot holes. The villain is Nick Chinland, who is not a main villain. He keeps changing up stuff. They're supposed to be vampires, but they don't do anything vampiric. And the action is so boring. It's so CGI fest. At least your CGI is supposed to be CGI because they're aliens. My CGI is horrible, and it doesn't make any sense why it's that bad, why it's so shoddy. They put money into this movie, and it was supposed to be a 120-minute movie that was dropped down to 88 minutes, and it still felt like the 120-minute movie. It is not a good movie. Someone who says it's watchable never watched it.
All right. So Independence Day Resurgence and Ultraviolet. I'm just doing one quick fact check here. So Greg did say they put money into Ultraviolet. Its total budget was $30 million. So some money, not necessarily a whole lot. Greg is correct on
what came up on screen.
While the Rotten Tomatoes score obviously is not the be-all end-all, we say that a lot on this show, but Ultraviolet does have a 9% of Rotten Tomatoes. Independence Day Resurgence does have a 30%. Interestingly, as far as Google users are concerned, 73% of Google users like Ultraviolet, and 69% like Independence Day Resurgence. So maybe we should go to the Google reviewers now, but I just thought that was a funny thing. This was an interesting round. I think both of you definitely have points for why you disliked the other movie. I just heard more against, I think I heard more from Greg against Isaac's point. I think Isaac's main thing was, I'd watch that for 88 minutes. And now after Greg's description, I think I do want to watch it for 88 minutes. I didn't think, it was forgettable, watchable. You can make fun of it. I don't think those were really as strong knocks as the things that Greg said against Independence Day Resurgence. So Greg's going to take a 2-1 lead as we go into our final question.
My big bet failed. I was really hoping you'd pick Lone Ranger.
I'm just a little bit surprised nobody went for Best Picture winner Crash.
It won the Best Picture.
Exactly. It's
literally the worst Best Picture winner ever. Well, debate that a different day.
It's really not.
Crash winning Best Picture is still better than Independence Day Resurgence or Ultraviolet.
That's true. That is true.
You lose that argument right there. My movie won Best Picture.
All right. We're going to go into our final question in the main round here. Greg's the 2-1 lead. If Isaac wins this, he ties it up into the speed round. If Greg wins, he's going to take a 2-point lead going to the speed round. The question: best Burt Reynolds movie. Short, sweet, simple, sweet, to the point. Greg, we're going to you first.
There are. I was actually surprised. I know the Burt Reynolds did some good movies, but he actually did more than I thought. But when you talk about Burt Reynolds, there's definitely a few movies that you think of directly when you think of him. And I went with the seminal Burt Reynolds classic, 1977's Smokey and the Bandit. starring Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, Jerry Reed, Jackie Gleason, as this great, fun action chase romance movie with Burt Reynolds having to get drive a case of beer across state lines with Jerry Reed driving a truck and Burt Reynolds as the fronter car. And they pick up Sally Field along the way, who is running away from her wedding to the son of Jackie Gleason's sheriff character. And it creates this great little creates these great scenes in the movie with this. The chemistry is never better between Burt Reynolds and Sally Field. They've mentioned actually in real life is that Burt Reynolds has mentioned that Sally Field is the one who got away. You can see that very clearly in this movie. The romantic chemistry between them is off the charts. Jackie Gleason is playing one of his best characters, and that's saying something off of his many great characters. But he is hilarious as Sheriff Buford. Jerry Reed is he didn't do much, and unfortunately died a little young. But he was great as the truck driver. You might remember him a little bit older as the coach in Waterboy. But Jerry Reed and Burt Reynolds have this great hero sidekick kind of pairing, and of course his own dog Blue. But the movie is just fun. It's an action romance comedy that just gets you where you want to go. It's a short movie, only an hour and 36 minutes, which is great. There's no fluff. It's just a great, fun movie that you want to rewatch over and over again, and with a great song.
Alrighty, Smokey and the Bandit for Greg. Isaac, when you're ready.
All right, my movie is the classic PTA movie. I think it's his best movie, Boogie Nights, the movie that Burt Reynolds got nominated for. It's the classic story, the well-known story that I think everybody experiences once in their life about Dirk Diggler or Eddie Adams, who wants to be a star, so he becomes a porn star. And it tells a Goodfellas-esque story throughout the porn industry in the 70s and 80s, I believe, late 80s, and the rise and fall of porn as an industry and Dirk Diggler as a porn star, the rise, fall, and perhaps rise again. It's a wonderful movie. It's filled with memorable characters that have all interesting stories. It's a long movie, but there's not a bit of wasted space on it. There's not a bit of wasted space on it. And it's just a fantastic movie. It's more important, more memorable than Smokey and the Bandit.
Alrighty, we're going to put 5 minutes on the clock for the open forum, and whoever speaks first, I will start the clock when you start talking.
Oh, I'm so glad we did this blindly, because who would have guessed that you'd have picked Boogie Nights? Oh, right, this guy with the giant dick. Let me take it out and show you. This movie is long, and yeah, there is definitely some minutes that would have been longer. If this movie was 2 hours, I would have actually picked it myself. But there is about 20, 30 minutes in the second to third act that could easily be taken out. Pretty much most of the stuff with Thomas Jane and Alfred Molina is just, I know they're trying to create this downward spiral thing, but they could have done something so much different. It was just pointless. And I know they're trying to take off the John Holmes thing. But the thing about Boogie Nights is it's super long. It's 2.5 hours. It feels like it. It goes on and on and on. And it's not a fun movie either. There's so much sadness and cruelty. William H. Macy dealing with his suicide and his ex-wife. Julianne Moore and her family. There's no Philip Seymour Hoffman and his unrequited love. It's not fun. It's just sad. It's depressing. It's too long. Smokey and the Bandit is the quintessential Burt Reynolds movie. That's the movie we want to see Burt Reynolds in. Him be having fun. Him being his mustache Lothario, a cowboy wearing hat guy who's just having a great time dealing with this romantic chemistry with Sally Field and having this fun antics that happen in the movie. Unlike Boogie Nights, which is just really long.
Oh, it's really long, and it makes me sad. So it's not a good movie. No, to prepare for this fight, I watched Boogie Nights twice over the last weekend. That's how much I like this movie, and that's how much it doesn't feel like 2 hours.
You weekend to watch it because it's that long.
No, it does not feel like 2 I also watched Independence Day, Resurgence, and a couple others, but I'm just saying, up in the air. I watched Boogie Nights twice because I wanted to, because it doesn't feel like 2 hours, because it does move. As far as lightness,
like 2.5 hours.
There is a ton of humor in this movie. Stuff with John C. Reilly's Reed Rothschild and stuff, and you're talking about William H. Macy's Little Bill. Even though that story is tragic and sad, there's also some funny dialogue in that story as well. Like, I'm sorry. What's the one line? I'm sorry, my wife has an ass in her cock in the driveway. It's just a hilarious wordplay. That's an accident, and they kept it in there, and it's hilarious.
William H. Macy, the put-upon character actor, because that's who William H. Macy's character is. He's playing the same character. And it's just even worse.
Every character in this movie you care about. Every single one. You're talking about lightness in the second half with Thomas Jane and Alfred Molina. That stuff is fantastic. I cannot believe you would criticize that. That is important.
It is overly long. There is at least 20 minutes that could have been taken out of this movie. We don't need to see his dick at the end. I don't know why that was actually in there. We know it's not him. We know it's a fake dick. We know everyone's talking about he has a huge dick. So what's the point of that part? And the fact that, and if you want to talk about William H. Macy and, it's a funny line that he had, I'm sorry, the snaps on my dick's cock, whatever the fuck it is. He's still having to watch his wife copulate with another guy in a whole group of people in the middle of the daylight.
Yes,
so we're just trying to laugh at William H. Macy, who's getting cheated on very blatantly, and causes him to lose his mind and go kill himself.
And that is sad. And that is sad.
We don't go to a Burt Reynolds movie to see sadness. We go to a Burt Reynolds movie to see the funness. It's fun.
I don't go to a movie.
I don't want to see Boogie Nights. I don't want to see, and it's not even, I don't want to see Boogie Nights just go on and on and on. If you want to talk about take away 20 minutes from that movie, I'll agree with you. Probably the best, but there it goes too long. The Mark Wahlberg's character doesn't really have any kind of evolution. He goes through this kind of ups and downs, but he doesn't really evolve at all. It's Mark Wahlberg. It's Dirk Diggler as this young idiot who's impressionable, but he just keeps getting hoodwinked into other things, which I know he's supposed to be the kind of the straight man to everyone else around him, but it still doesn't really work for him as a character.
Yes, it does. It absolutely works for him as a character. And for the record, you're talking about Burt Reynolds movies. The seminal Burt Reynolds movie that I thought you were talking about in the beginning, the movie that everybody I think of when I hear Burt Reynolds, is Deliverance, where the man gets raped. I'm just throwing that out there.
Deliverance. Apparently, you just like thinking about sodomy. 15 things about Deliverance as the Burt Reynolds movie. The Burt Reynolds movie is Smoking the Bandit. That's why they made. I like
movies that actually say something about the world we live in. Your movie is nothing. It's fluff. It's shallow. My movie actually says something.
The same character in Gator and in Stroker Ace. It's him doing the same. It's him doing the same character.
Time there. All right, Greg. Actually, you can continue because I think it's. Wait. Yeah, that's right, Greg. Yep. You started, so you're good.
The fact that you would say Deliverance is a seminal Burt Reynolds movie is just insane. The Smokey and the Bandit is the seminal Burt Reynolds movie because he recreated the character so many times afterwards. Is because it was such a huge hit. It made over $100 million off I think it was like a $5 to $10 million movie because it was so damn huge. It was so lovable. It created 2 more sequels. He wasn't in the third one, but it still created the 2 more sequels. He redid it in Stroker Ace and Gator. Archer pretty much parodies it in every episode for the first 4 seasons. And it's such a fun action, romance-driven comedy that has some great performances from Burt Reynolds, put Sally Field on the map, and springboarded her to superstardom. Jerry Reed and Jackie Gleason are just some of the best supporting characters in any movie. Jackie Gleason as the villain, trying to get a hold of them, while even having some kind of respect, having some kind of mutual respect with Burt Reynolds. Boogie Nights is an overly long, depressing movie. Mark Wahlberg, again, I know he's just the straight man and a stand-in, but Dirk Diggler is the same impressionable character he is at the end that he is at the beginning. He thinks he's too full of himself, and I know the point was that he wasn't supposed to be a good actor, but Mark Wahlberg was a bad actor. I know that's kind of the point of Dirk Diggler as a character. He wasn't a good actor. He was just there because he has a huge dick. But he's not. It wasn't a good performance. It's just Mark Wahlberg being Mark Wahlberg, not being good. Him whining at the beginning to his mom was some of the most cringe-inducing part. I don't know how you still have eardrums after watching it twice over the entire weekend, because that's how long it took. Like I said, there's about 20 to 30 minutes that could be taken out, and it doesn't go. It's too much. P.T. Anderson's a great movie. He would do stuff better later on. Obviously later on with There Will Be Blood and Punch Your Glove and everything else. Boogie Nights was one of his first, and it was definitely a springboard into better ones, but it wasn't his best. It's not as good as Smokey and the Bandit, and Smokey and the Bandit is just a fun action comedy romance that should be seen again and again, and is the Burt Reynolds movie.
Alrighty, good closing there from Greg. Isaac, when you're ready.
All right. Oh, great. All right. First off, my movie isn't overly long. It has a story to tell, and it tells the story, and it tells it succinctly. There isn't a wasted moment. You can talk about Alfred Molina and Thomas Jane all you want. It has a point. It has a point to bring Mark Wahlberg to the lowest point of his career. It's intercut. That whole scene is intercut with the limousine ride with Burt Reynolds, where he realizes he's at his lowest, and this is not what he set out to do. He set out to tell stories, and this is not what he signed up for. It's both of those characters on a parallel arc to their low and then back up again when Mark Wahlberg goes through that realization and comes back and wants to do it right the second time. That movie ends with him looking in the mirror at himself and realizing who he is. To say he doesn't go through a character growth is a gross misunderstanding. I understand, I love your arguments. You're very hyperbolic and you like to say things that sound good, but they just they aren't actually saying anything. You can say that my movie's depressing. That's not a knock about the quality of the movie. This is the best Burt Reynolds movie. You may not like depressing movies. That's fine, but it doesn't say what the movie is, right? It is a sad movie. There's not really a way to tell a story about the porn industry in the 70s and 80s and not be sad. There's sad stories there, and it tells it there. There's also moments of humor, especially with Reed Rothschild. But you have great performances all around the board. There's every single character you connect to. Your movie doesn't have anybody that I connect to. It's fluff. It's shallow. It's a fun watch. It's a great movie. It's Three Stooges in the South. It's a great distraction, but it has nothing to say. It has no point to make. It's just entertainment, and that's not a problem. But when we're talking about the best Burt Reynolds movie, I'm going to go with the movie that got him the most acclaim, that got him the award nominations, the movie that had something to say and said it in a succinct way, in a clear way, and in an important way. And that's Boogie Nights. And I don't believe it about your penis, by the way. Just saying.
All right. Well, that's
I'm going to send you a definition of the word succinct, so you can then use it better in your fight for your three-way fight.
All right. Wow, this one was actually tougher than I thought it would be when you guys said which movies you were doing. Yeah. Let's see. I think Isaac was on the defense for a lot of this, talking about how just because it's long and depressing doesn't mean it's bad. And I think he actually defended those points really, really, really well. This is tough. I liked what Isaac was saying about how it tells a story. It actually says something. That's why the movie is a little bit longer, is because it does have a story to tell, and it takes its time and does it well. It does it right. Greg, I think you talked, supporting your own movie. You were talking about how the cast has a lot of chemistry and it's fun, and that's mostly all I heard from the support of your own movie. It was just repeated during the opening and the closing. You said action, comedy, romance, but I still only heard fun, and there was good performances in the cast. That being said, I don't think Isaac attacked Greg's movie until the closing. I think I needed a little bit in the open forum from Isaac. Isaac, you had a lot of good points in the closing about why Greg's wasn't good. I just needed to hear them earlier in the fight. So I'm going to give this point to Greg. Greg's going to go up 1-3 going into the speed round, but we are not done yet. All right, so, alrighty. So for those of you watch along, and just a quick recap for the competitors, this is how the speed round is going to work. I am going to say a question. You guys are going to blurt out your answers. Whoever says their answer first, both argues first and argues for their answer. If you both say the same thing, and somebody else says it first, the second person has to pick a different answer. You guys are going to have 30 seconds to argue, and then 15-second rebuttals. I'll make my judgment based on solely those 45 seconds each. And yeah, any other questions? If we get to the final question, it's a different time. It's 30, 20, and 10. But for the main speed round, it's 30 and 15. Any questions?
We're good.
Alrighty, so Greg is up 3-1 right now on Isaac. If Greg hits any of these questions, he will win. But other than that, Isaac's got to answer out. We've seen crazier stuff happen, so it's definitely not over yet. All right. So for your speed round, question 1. What is the best Spielberg directed movie released in the 21st century?
Catch Me If You Can.
Munich.
All right, arguably the two best. Greg, since you went first, you're going to have 30 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking. Greg, whenever you're ready.
The best chase movies of all time, with Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio playing these criminal and a cop against him. Christopher Walken plays the great father to Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who Leonardo DiCaprio just adores until he finds out about his wife, his mother, leaving him. Frank Abagnale is this great character who is this real life person who keeps creating these fake identities and dealing with all these great people like Amy Adams' character, and having the bond that he had with Martin Sheen playing her father, and how he did it, and the great relationship between Tom.
Time there. Isaac, 30 seconds when you're ready.
Catch Me If You Can is popcorn, and it's fun, and it's Spielberg having fun. Munich is Spielberg grown up. Spielberg. This is Schindler's List with layers. This is the cycle of violence and what that does to people, and what violence means, and what that means generationally. And it's a incredible character study. It's an incredible historical piece. Catch Me If You Can. A lot of people have fun with that movie, and the costumes and the changes and the scams that he runs. Tom Hanks is miscast, and the end of the movie falls apart and gets kind of weird and depressing.
Time there. Sorry, I'm just writing down. All right, Greg, 15.
Munich could have and should have been a nuanced movie, but it wasn't. It actually failed in it. It becomes a one-sided morality play where it just follows a bunch of gang of criminals, gang of assassins just trying to kill people, but they don't actually have any comeuppance or anything like that. Catch Me If You Can has this great relationship. It has great many darkened lamps. Leonardo DiCaprio has to deal with this lot.
All right, my hand can only move so fast. Isaac, when you're ready. 15.
In the real world, the people who commit the crime sometimes don't pay the consequences, and that's the whole point of Munich, is that sometimes the violence gets recycled and paid on people that are innocent, and that's the whole cycle of violence generationally and about religion in the Middle East, and the violence that perpetuates.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, these were definitely the two answers I was hoping to hear for sure. I wanted to hear this fight. So this one's tough. You guys both spent your opening arguments kind of just talking about your movies. Both of you got a couple hits in against the other person. I think Isaac spent his first 30 talking about what his movie really meant and what it's about. and why it's the best. And Greg, I think you spent your first 30 just kind of summarizing the movie and what exactly like happens in it. So I think I needed a little bit of a deeper argument in the first 30 from Greg. I'm going to give that first point to Isaac.
Well, I took him down in the rebuttal.
And Isaac took you down in both the opening and the rebuttal.
He didn't.
Yes, he did. Popcorn and fun. Hanks was miscast and falls apart.
Wow.
All right. Let's do this one. All right, speed round number 2. This is an either or, so I'm going to name 2 movies. Which of these 2 movies is going to make more money this summer? Skyscraper or Mission Impossible Fallout?
Mission Impossible.
Is this over the run of its?
Yeah. Which one of these is going to be a higher grosser? All right. So, Greg, you answered first. You're going to have 30 seconds when you're ready.
Mission Impossible movies have kept on getting better and better, especially with their box office. The trailers look great for this. Everyone wants to see Tom Cruise doing his next death-defying stunt. I don't know if Skyscraper is actually going to be any good. It seems like it's going to not be any good, and I don't think the movie's going to make that much money. I barely think it's going to make half of what Mission Impossible make. Mission Impossible is better. Tom Cruise is going to be better in this movie. It's a franchise. It's not a one-off, and the movies have kept getting better and better in terms of box office and plot and terms. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's too many movies coming out, and all the movies are playing out.
Alrighty, Isaac, 30 seconds when you're ready.
You're right, Mission Impossible is like the 6th film in this franchise. There is going to be a bit of franchise fatigue here. We're talking about global box office. Dwayne Johnson is a worldwide star. His movies have not opened less than one. I forget the last one, but it's been like 17 years or something insane. His movies make money. He's a genuine bona fide hit. Mission Impossible is big in the U.S., but worldwide, you got to remember China. You got to remember the Asian market. That's a real market now, and that's what's going to put Dwayne Johnson Skyscraper over Mission Impossible. It's going to be fun. It's going to be action. It's going to be Die Hard, literally.
And again, time there.
Make money.
All right, 15 seconds, Greg, when you're ready.
First of all, Baywatch. Second of all, Tom Cruise has been the biggest star of the Hollywood for the past 30 years. That's Hollywood, that's China, that's India, that's the freaking moon, that's everywhere you want to talk about. The last 2 movies for Mission Impossible have been the highest grossing. This one, it looks even better, and it's a great concluding franchise. It's bringing back some great actors, and Henry Cavill is going to add something. And
all right, 15 seconds, Isaac.
Tom Cruise isn't the moneymaker he was. Edge of Tomorrow, Oblivion. Dwayne Johnson still makes money worldwide. That's the important part. He's going to make money in the Asian market. It's entertainment versus either knowing the franchise and loving it or being tired of it. I'm going to bet on entertainment value in the summer. Great big action movie. Dwayne Johnson is a star.
All right. Let me just look for what I have. This is definitely a Rock versus Cruise thing. Both of you, I think, came out the gate really strong. Greg talking about how the Mission Impossible franchise has been getting better and better, both in terms of the actual quality in the movie and the box office. It's got a built-in audience because of the franchise. They're bringing new things with Henry Cavill. Isaac, you were talking about how it's going to be a fun action movie. You're going to take the entertainment value of The Rock. Both of you guys brought up some movies that the other star wasn't so popular in, you know, Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow, Baywatch, etc. Yeah, that is really, really tough. I think I needed one new point in the 15 seconds from Isaac besides bringing up the worldwide market again. I think that Greg brought up new points in his second 15. I think Isaac reworded his points in his second 15. So I think I'm going to give the point and the win there to Greg. Greg is going to take the win 4-2. With that being said, we're going to talk to Isaac real quick first. Isaac, keep in mind, you are not completely out of this tournament quite yet. You are going to have a triple threat around the corner to bounce back into it. You are not out of the woods yet. What are you thinking?
I think it was a good match. Some questions, I don't know, but I'll give a little peek behind the scenes. I usually don't share my answers at all and go in blind, and I enjoy that. I felt like I was at a disadvantage with the Independence Day one, because I did share that if I pick an answer that somebody else has picked, then I will share that answer, so it's equal ground. I know Greg knew that I had Independence Day, but I never found out what he had because he just didn't offer that information for it, so it was a little unfair, I feel like, but I took a gamble there, and it didn't work out, so that's fine. I look forward to meeting him again. I'll fight on his terms then and share my answers, and we'll see how it goes then.
All right, and you definitely have nothing to look back on. Like I said, this was a hell of a match, one of the best matches I've ever hosted. You guys are definitely on a very even playing field as far as just the debate skill. Greg, how are you feeling? What do you think?
Well, I was going to give kudos to Isaac for a great game, and then he kind of throws me under the bus and lambasts me for his own rules, but whatever. I thought it was a fun match. I liked some of the questions. I did think that second speed round question was a little bit that was a little bit unfair there. I don't think Mission Impossible and Skyscraper are quite on the same level, but hey, I'll take the victory on that one. Appreciate the judging. It was a fun match.
All righty. We'll go back to Isaac because I didn't do this already. Anything you'd like to plug before we finish up here?
Just YouTube channel, Isaac Horvat. Do a lot of gaming on there. A couple film things once in a while.
Awesome,
Twitter
yeah.
at Filmer2013.
Awesome, yeah. And he's also doing a live watch-along of his third watch of Boogie Nights this week. Greg, anything you'd like to plug?
I'll see if I can free up my weekend. No, just the different trivia channels that everyone knows about, Worldwide Movie Games, trivia, Movie Battleground, all the other good stuff that we all play and do, and I win at. So, aha.
Alrighty. Well, as for me personally, you can follow me personally on Twitter and Letterboxd at RBRTPRKR98. It's my first and last name, no vowels plus a year. Other than that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and this video. That's at Worldwide Movie Games Network. Make sure you join that Facebook page. Make sure you join the Movie Battleground Facebook page. Make sure that you support all of our competitors and all of our other friends under our umbrella league because we all need that support, and this is a lot of fun. So make sure you guys join those Facebook pages. Make sure you do all of the good things you're supposed to see at these end of these YouTube videos. And other than that, we will see you next time on the Movie Battleground. Thanks for tuning in and take care.